Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest for our episode today, Brandon Pfleiger. He's coming out of Virginia. He's a CEO, he's an investor, entrepreneur with Capital Growth Partners, and he's going to talk to us all about the work that he does, the investments, the clients he has, as well as a broad overview of what's going on in the markets today. I'm really happy to have him on and pick his brain. So, Brandon, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Briefly introduce yourself and we'll dive into the questions.
Yeah. So again, Brandon, just got done with a marketing company. I used to run a marketing company, a firm that really helped small businesses, Chris, just grow and scale their companies. And we were also in the political realm a little bit. And I just decided, I woke up one day and hated that, frankly, and I wanted to get out. And so I now run Capital Growth Partners. We invest in fitness and wellness brands. And so I run on the franchising side a company called Rockbox Fitness. We own some boxing studios. And then on the other side, we do some e-commerce work as well. So we're in two different spaces and expanding pretty rapidly. So,
Interesting. And just to kick things off, what is it about wellness and fitness? What is it about these industries that drew you to it?
one, I think, Chris, we all kind of struggle with like our purpose and passion, right? And I think it's not necessarily required, but it's better if you're like what you're doing, right? It just makes you sleep better. And so for me, I don't feel bad selling fitness and wellness. I think it's something that everyone needs, regardless if they necessarily realize that or not at the time. So I
Yeah.
just feel good about it. It's one thing to sell a company a couple $1 million in an advertising campaign. It's another thing to help somebody change their life and better themselves. So that's really why I got back into it.
Interesting. And so moving on is what the clients that come to work with you, are they angel investors? Are they VC? Are they private equity? Who are the types of clients that you work with?
Generally speaking, it's more private clients than anything. We're not in the space where we're taking a ton of capital at this moment. A lot of it's my private capital, and then we have a couple other partners that are interested in expanding on the franchising side. And more of what we're trying to do for people is give them the ability to invest in something that has pretty good cash flow, right? Where they get out of that 9 to 5, but they're not necessarily feeling like they're not involved in the business at all. We try to help other franchisees that are just getting into the game understand exactly what it means to run a business. A lot of people go into franchising with not a full understanding of what that actually means and that they're actually the business owner. It's not somebody else taking care of it for them. So we help with all the operations and the integration that it takes to do something like that.
Interesting. And the
Yeah.
clients, yeah. And the clients that come to work with you, what are their pain points, frustrations, want, desires? What are they sick and tired of? What do they aspire to be to come to work with you?
Yeah, great question. I think first and foremost, they're tired of that 9 to 5 grind where they've got to get up, walk the dogs, then sit on a computer for 9 hours and then do it all over again the next day, just waiting for a paycheck, right? So, what we always say is we're trying to help people transition out of that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way, but transition out of that and move more into business ownership. And what does business ownership mean? Managing your own hours, right? Managing your own cash flow. You can pick and choose what it means and how much money you want to get X, Y, and Z to the financial freedom aspect of what we're talking about. But I think in a lot of ways, what most of these people are looking for is just something that they're passionate about. And most people that come to us have some sort of interest in fitness, whether they've dabbled in it before or they've invested in some company in the health and wellness space, but they've never owned their own business. So that's usually what they come to us for. I think pain points probably are staffing. It's really hard if you haven't been a business owner before to staff your business properly. On one end, you want to make sure you have the right people getting paid the right amounts to execute for you. On the other end, you don't want to overpay or underpay or have way too many people in the building at once. So we help with that model and help people understand this is how many people you need to run the business and these are the types of people you need to run the business. And the other part is cash flow management. If you've never run a P&L before or don't understand what that even means, profit and loss statement, by the way, for folks that maybe don't know what that means, but just to how to read your finances, how to make sure you don't run out of money at the end of the month, and to help them manage their cash flow is also what we do.
Interesting. How do you help? For example, the audience are a lot of them are W-2, like doctor, lawyer, and then or some of them are self-employed too.
Okay.
And how do you help these types of individuals become like franchise owners, or is that something else you do elsewhere?
Yeah. So generally speaking, we have a broad conversation with somebody. Hey, these are your goals. These are your aspirations, whether it's involved in the franchise that I'm a partner of, or if it's something else, right? If you want to invest in opening a boba shop or whatever it is, what are the logistics that may need to go into that? I find that different sectors have vastly different margins when it comes to what you can expect on the return, right? And so just making sure someone's aligned with what their actual return is going to look like. The biggest thing I would say for a W-2 employee going into this, maybe never having run a business, or you do have a business currently, but you're looking to get into retail space or brick and mortar, is you've really got to understand the type of investment that comes with that. I'm very transparent with people, and I think there's a lot of actors out there that aren't about the type of capital you might need access to in order to open something like this. Now, we can help with that as well if we need to, if we believe in the person. But on the other end, if somebody's just going in and they've got a couple $100,000 in their 401k and they think they want to throw it all at a boutique fitness business, that's where I help people out and pump the brakes a little bit and say, hey, look, let's talk about what this is actually going to take. Because what we don't want to see our clients or investors do is get into something and end up not having enough runway to actually make the business successful and knocking on my door 6 months in going, hey, I'm out of cash. What do I do?
Yeah. We do have a question from the audience is because what's interesting here is a Rockbox Fitness franchise owner, and then your founder,
Mhm.
managing partner of Capital Growth Partners. Is
Yeah.
Capital Growth Partners a private equity firm? Do you invest clients' money into companies, businesses, equities, etc.?
We do not. We are not a private equity firm at all. What we really do is we do a lot of small business consulting. So I would say our niche is probably between the 10 and 50 million range in terms of businesses. And we own our Rockbox franchises outright, obviously, but then what we mostly do is help other small business owners, people in that startup mode, go to the next level. And that usually looks something like walking them through their financials and how do we go out there and get more money, or from the other perspective is people, right? If you've got somebody in the wrong seat on your bus, we got to figure out how to move that person out and get the right person in there so we can help them be successful.
Interesting. So, what's been your biggest pain point or frustration doing this, and what did you learn from it?
So I think for me, and this is before Capital Growth Partners, even when we just first became a franchisee at Rockbox, a little bit smaller of a picture, right? Is that I got into things thinking that I was going to have all this freedom and the hours were going to be a lot less than what I was doing when I was the CEO of that marketing firm. And I think that I always like to tell anybody that talks to me about it is I kind of punched me in the face, right? It was not exactly like that. I was working 60 to 70-hour weeks for a while. And you have to get out, especially if you come in at it like I was from a W-2 employee perspective into business ownership. You got to realize that it's not just going to be punching in and punching out, right? That is all your money and it's all on the line. And you got to do everything in your power to help get that thing moving. And then at some point, you move from operator to owner. And moving from operator to owner is really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs because they're so used to managing the business and they know exactly what to expect out of their output that it's hard to give faith to the other people around them. And I struggled with that too. I had to give my team some space instead of managing the business right there and then. I've had to step out a lot. And now I'm at about 10 hours per week on that business. And the rest of it, I focus on our consulting company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's because a lot of what's you talk about this shift in mindset from just operator working in the business versus working on. What's that key mindset shift to go from operator to owner?
I would say aspirationally, if you want to grow your business, or in our example, if we want to open up more franchises, or if you want to take your consulting company to the next level and really expand it, at some point you have to step out and you have to start giving the people that you hire to do a job the space to do that job. And that does not mean, by the way, that you don't manage to expectations and to KPIs and to metrics, because that's what matters, right? You don't want to just say, here's the keys, I'll see you next week and see how things are going. You still have meetings, you inspect what you expect, right? But generally speaking, for me, I think that's the biggest key is really making sure you have a focus on people right away. And for those listening that maybe have somebody on their team that they're iffy about, I usually find that the people that you're iffy about, you probably already know what the right thing to do is and you're just avoiding that conversation, right? I'm not telling anyone to go out there and fire their whole staff. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is to make sure that those hard conversations you're putting off, you have to have them if you want your business to grow.
Yeah. It's interesting because this podcast we've got has so many guests that have talked about like buying a business, acquiring a business, starting a business, and I see you're an entrepreneur. For
Mhm.
those for the audience that they have capital when they're looking to deploy it, why would they like go into a franchise or like a versus just invest in the public equity markets or real estate? Why would they take such a risk?
Sure. I think there's a lot of upside to franchising and buying businesses. There's a lot faster growth that comes with a franchise. Like I can just throw some numbers out there. Typically speaking, in the boutique fitness space, you're probably looking at 25 to 30% profit margins. So if your business is doing $500,000 a year, that's a small business, by the way, and you can do the math. That's decent return on that investment over time. You can make your money back in 2, 3 years, which that's not generally the returns you're going to get in the market. Right. But there is the sweat equity, as I call it, right? It's not easy to open a business to the points that we were just talking about where your time goes into it. You have to value all those things. So if you're telling me that you've got just $100,000 to invest and you're trying to decide between the markets and a franchise, I think it depends on where you want to put your time. That franchise is going to pay you more money long term, probably, than that investment might, especially if you can get it into a place where it's shooting off ten to $15,000 a month. Like people can do the math on here, right? That's good money. However, especially if you can amplify that to 10, 15, 20 locations. But if you're not ready to put the time in, you still want to keep your 9 to 5 job and you just have some money you want to invest, I would push you to the markets because there is some guaranteed safety. Franchising specifically, because you asked about that, is more about some safeguards around the business. So, for example, they're going to put some parameters around what you can and cannot do. And that's just to help you. It's not to stifle growth, but it's actually to help people that maybe haven't run a business before come into it with their eyes open and really make sure that they're not doing anything that's going to harm themselves or their business. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that from the franchising perspective. And I'm always happy to have those types of conversations with folks just to educate them about why franchising might be the right fit for them, especially if they have never gone down the entrepreneur journey yet. So.
Yeah. Another question I have for you is what are the key skill sets? Because a lot of people I've talked to with this buy and acquire business or franchising, these kind of versus just investing in your own business or investing in yourself or the real estate, etc. What is the key skill set that'll make you successful as a either owner operator of a franchise or buying, acquiring a business and so on?
Yeah, I think I have two top of mind. The first one would definitely be sales. And it's something that, particularly me coming into entrepreneurship, I didn't used to be very strong at. And so I talk a lot about this on other podcasts and wherever I am when I'm consulting my small business owners is that you've got to put an emphasis on sales, regardless of what your business is. So, for example, if you're a pest control company or HVAC services, or if you're a private equity firm, no matter what, you're selling something. You're either selling yourself, you're asking people for money, you're selling your services. In my instance, I'm selling myself to somebody to have them trust me enough to give me a little bit of money so I can help them grow their business, right? So we're all selling at all points in time. And I think too often do we put that to the side and we think that we can just crunch numbers and expense ourselves to profit. And at the end of the day, if you're not growing, you're dying. That's not to say that the back end financials aren't important, which I'm going to talk about next, but sales is probably number one for me. The second thing I would say everybody out there needs to fully understand, and I'm shocked at how many people don't, is marketing. I mentioned before I ran a marketing firm, and I don't know how many times we sat down with small business owners and big businesses, right? And millions of dollars going against marketing without any form of understanding about if you're growing a business, you should be spending roughly between 5 and 10% of your total revenue towards marketing. Now, that doesn't mean just flush it all down digital marketing. There are other ways to market your business strategically. But I have talked to, even in the last week, 2 business owners specifically that decided to cut marketing off completely and they were going to try to do it on their own and cut out their agency or whoever they were working with. And that's a mistake, in my opinion. You have to understand that your digital marketing footprint is everything nowadays. I think we see, gosh, what, 250 ads in a minute right now if you're just scrolling on Instagram. That would be my next thing, is really focusing on, if you don't understand marketing, get somebody in your zone that understands marketing. And the last piece I think would be financial literacy, is just understanding how to read a P&L. And at least if you don't understand that and that's not your skill set, get somebody else in there that does. Because I've seen a lot of business owners think they were doing really great on paper and then say, hey, I'm out of money. And I don't know how that happened. And that would be my last one, is so sales, marketing, and understanding your financials.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of a couple of my colleagues, they're like, "Yeah, we had a profitable year," and then when it comes time to pay staff or pay taxes, they're like, "Where'd all the money go? You were profitable." What?
Yeah.
And,
Actually, most of your clients still owe you that money. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot to it, right?
yeah. The other question I have for you is for the audience, if they are not skilled in managing people or teams, how do they mitigate this deficiency if they're going to own and operate a business?
Yeah, I will. I'll share a story because I was just talking to one of our clients this morning about that. And this client is not very outward facing. He's an introvert. He's really good at the back end. He was rattling off all his expenses to me and how he's tightening up in certain areas. And all that was great. But when it comes down to communicating expectations to his team, he struggles a lot with that. So
Mhm.
the most important thing I find is, if you have the ability, and there's parameters around this, but if you have the ability to get somebody in your business that is that people person, that is a very clear and cut communicator, I call them the executor or the operator, that can actually run the business, and you're more of the strategy and the behind the scenes, you need to do that. I have another story where I used to be partners in a marketing firm, and the majority owner of the marketing firm was a wonderful, a genius on the marketing front. And but when it came to having those conversations, and particularly the tough conversations, it just wasn't a skill set. It never ended the way it was supposed to. And people left that meeting confused or upset. And so that was really my role. I was the person that comes in and communicates expectations, and his role was the one that sets the expectations and was more of the creative behind the scenes. Finding your partner in crime, I think, is number one. And if you can't do that, there's a lot of ways to improve communications. There's a lot of free resources out there on Google and LinkedIn and YouTube. But investing in that side of your business is really important, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Finding a coach out there that maybe can walk you through that if you can't afford to bring somebody else in to do it for you. But you got to have clear communication, because you can have a wonderful business, but if people don't understand what they're being held accountable for, it'll all fall apart around you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen it with Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, she's this, and then another, my colleague, he was just shy and introverted, could not communicate, and so they brought in a COO that can actually do the things like what you were describing.
Yeah.
If people wanted to connect with you and learn more about what you do at Capital Growth Partners or learn about franchise, so like a Rockbox Fitness, how could they do that?
Yeah, I think that the best way to talk about the franchising side is just to shoot me a message or an email. It's at BMCKEE, and that's at rockboxfitness.com. And then the other side of it, if you want to talk to me a little bit more about your own business outside of franchising, it's actually my new last name, because I just got married and changed my last name, but B Pfleiger, Pflieger, and that's at capitalgrowthpartnersllc.com. So
Oh,
best way to connect. Yeah. And then we'll go from there. And a lot of times what I like to do is a quick 15, 20-minute discovery. It's completely free. And we just talk a little bit about what are your struggles, and I'll be honest if I can help or not.
excellent. Yeah, well, I really enjoyed this conversation and keep up the great work. And thanks so much for this episode.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Chris. Take care.